55 Methodist churches in Florida are leaving, refusing to accept LGBTQ+. The Florida Conference of the United Methodist Church has approved conditional disaffiliation for 55 churches, saying the churches met the requirements for separation over the issue of human sexuality. The churches could depart the conference as early as June 1st if they fulfill all the financial requirements. The disaffiliated churches would be able to keep their buildings and their real estate. As is the case with other Christian denominations, especially within the United States Bible Belt, the Methodist Church has been dealing with disagreements over doctrine and practices regarding LGBTQ+ issues all the way back to the 1970s. In 2019, Methodist leaders proposed a plan for congregations to leave this year during global meeting of its denominations. Previous conference bishop Ken Carter took the lead on coming up with the framework. The 55 churches decided to leave and are doing so because they refused to allow same-sex marriages, and they were required to host votes of their congregation and get 2/3 majority as part of the disaffiliation process. So I think what's clear from these numbers is that these congregations are incredibly anti-gay. They're incredibly anti-gay. And this is the Methodist faith, which is, well, they're letting churches decide on their own. So they're certainly open to the idea, and the churches that don't like it have to leave. But it reminds us that in our own backyard, there is still a lot of hate, and they'll say it's with love, but it's with hate at a minimum. It's discrimination. It's ugly at its very worst.
Yeah, and I think that all these news stories that we keep reading over and over again on Queer News Tonight just, makes the point that our community needs to get out and vote. We need to really turn the politics around. We really need to start having that, what we used to have before a little bit more, which was the separation of church and state. Mm-hmm. We need to have that more, and we just need to go out there and vote, because if we don't do, then more of these stories will just continue to report on more and more of our rights being taken away on a daily basis. And then next thing you know, we'll be like Uganda, right? Where now we're being criminalized.
Yeah, but I think the mistake I've said this before in past stories. I think that one of the mistakes we've made as a community is we have not reached out enough. And I don't mean just voting. I mean, we need to reach out to the African American community. We need to reach out to the Latino community. We need to make ourselves involved in the community besides our bars and our clubs and our sports teams and our tight-knit community, because we have to play a bigger role in the community at large. We're having that same problem here in Florida. We're being attacked on a regular basis, and the attacks are getting more and more hateful. Mm-hmm. So, I'm hoping that I see within the next few weeks or months, that I see a lot of the gay organizations reaching out to politicians and making that, finding that ally to say, hey, here's what we're dealing with. What are you dealing with? It's the same discrimination. It's just this one's gay and that one's black, or this one's whatever.
In addition to what all of you guys are saying right now, I think what we're seeing right here just being put on display is the fact that this offensive that we need to go on and we need to take this offensive, and it has to be a multi-pronged approach.
Exactly.
Okay? Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because it's going to be there in the legislative branch.
Right.
It's going to be on the streets in our communities.
And the school board.
It's going to be in our homes, in our families, and making sure we're healing on that level as well. But one of the big things, and we just heard it in the last story as well, is that we need to put our money into and supporting those businesses, supporting those politicians, supporting those organizations, those people who are standing for us right now, and empower them, because they're on the front lines. And we really need to do that. And we have to really make sure that we make that a priority, because we're talking about money, right? Mm-hmm. Listen, our community is a wealthy community. Yeah. Overall, right? In general. Right. And we have power. So we can't sit back and just let it happen. We have to be on the offensive.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I have a question. And this is for the table, because I'm just curious, because we're discussing this, and we've had religion in a couple of our stories tonight. Obviously, this show is very open to religion and faith. We're shooting on the campus of a wonderful queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. One of our 10 pillars that we talk about at the very top of the show is faith. But my question is, is it worth it? When we still have to go after redistricting, getting people, our allies, into the state legislature, when we have to worry about all the things that we can control, that the Constitution at least puts some loose regulation around that says, yes, you have to do it. Is it even worth our time and money to try and get into the religions that are clearly rejecting us? 2/3 of a majority of these.
Yes, but not everybody has. I mean, I know a lot of people who are spiritual and go to these churches because they want that aspect in their life. They need that faith. So if you're going to be a part of any organization, I was brought up that you open your mouth and you volunteer and you introduce yourself and you make sure people know you're there and you do what's good for not only yourself and your presence, but also for that organization. So as we're demanding all of these issues, and we're learning right now that one of the biggest influences to the negative issues, the hateful aspects, is coming from 15% of our population, which is mostly represented by the religious aspects of extreme Christian Catholic views.
With loud voices.
With loud voices. Then we haven't spent enough time as individuals going to these different organizations, not just the businesses and everything else and the politicians, but we haven't spent enough time debating those people in church and saying, no, where in the Bible does it say that? How are you interpreting it? Because this interpretation is contrary to that interpretation.
So you think it's still worth our time?
Yes.
It is I believe it's absolutely worth our time. And I think a lot of it comes back down to what everyone was saying. It starts locally, getting the right people in the right places. And it's about education, getting out there and educating. What is the fear? What are you afraid of, whether it be from our community to the Black community, the trans community? What has happened in your life that you believe so strongly that there's a threat? To your family values, to whatever it is. And I do believe if we were to start out on a local level, and I think also it may be Pollyanna, but I also believe in that pay it forward. Be nice to someone who isn't nice to you because they can't hate you if they like you. Buy someone a cup of coffee, like make a friend. You don't know what their religious affiliation is, but they eventually learn who you are. And you start to build that trust and understanding.
But we also have to educate ourselves, because I've said it many times before when I've had the opportunity here on this show. The biggest thing that always kills the religious community is the concept of the word marriage. We didn't choose the word marriage. The word marriage was defined to us by the rights we needed for health and financial and inheritance and home ownership and taxation, because it was the term the United States government has used since day one of its conception. The marriage that we have is not a religious marriage. We have never requested that. The use of the word marriage is the benefit of all those aspects.
Right.
It's funny
It's
that
a federal.
And where did that come from? The desire to do that goes back to the AIDS pandemic and people being left and not being able to visit their partners and not be able to inherit.
Yeah, but I think that what he's saying is exactly that. It's if the language, and this is something
change.
that when
Well, we have to educate ourselves so that when we talk to a pastor who is hateful, and he goes on about Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve, it's like, look, I didn't choose the word marriage. It's the legal term that is forced upon us in the United States because
call it balloons for all we care. We're going to get balloons.
But that's the reality of the legal process.
There's a lot of
It was determined what word we used, and that word is marriage.
Right. Okay.
But we haven't explained that to anybody, and we haven't done ourselves any favor by not educating ourselves and the younger.
We only had a reporter here
the reality
that
of
might
it
be able
is
to address something like this. I don't know.
If only.
Listen, the reality of it is this, okay? When the churches are making the well-being of human beings, because this is a human sexuality conversation, right? When we're taking the fact that 1 in 6 children are going to bed hungry every single night, when we have people who are living in food, scarcity, and we have people who are homeless, and we have people who don't have the health, the health insurance or the health support that they need. What are we talking about? Why does it matter what I'm doing in my house and why?
Right, when we have so many single-family parents or families with single families trying to get through the day, and the best they can do in order to meet the needs is McDonald's instead of healthy choices.
But let's also remember, 40 years ago, it was about mixed marriage. It was about single parents. We've identified those aspects, and that's become such common everyday situations that people don't make it an issue anymore. But we haven't done that with the gay community. We haven't presented ourselves as being a part, how important we are to the community at large, not just to our little group.
Yeah, and as we get ready to move on, because Patricia, I know you have a story coming up, I agree with all of you on that. And I think that education, that awareness, that getting out there is a thing that they seem insignificant until they're all together. And one of the favors they have done for us is by alienating so many groups for different reasons, but almost the same. It's all about discrimination because of color. It's discrimination because of sexual orientation. It's men against women. It's all these things that all these groups now are being attacked almost simultaneously, which does help to bring us together as a community
and we find
to stand up, find a common ground. So you're not just going out to scream about gay rights. You're out there about human rights. That whole, gay rights are human rights. Black rights are human rights. And I think that's where this all comes to.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.